Okay, these notes are dimensional analysis notes. Now, dimensional analysis is a way to change between units or change from one thing to another using conversion factors. In order to do dimensional analysis, you will need to find a conversion factor that you can use to convert. The conversion factor must be an equivalent measure, meaning both things are equal to each other, between the two units, with one of the measurements being 1. Okay, here are some common conversion factors. So, most everybody knows that there's 12 inches in 1 foot, and 36 inches in a yard, or at least 3 feet in a yard. But there are other ones, like one that we'll use a lot is 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. Well, maybe not use a lot, but we'll be using them on occasion. 1 meter is 3.28 feet, and a few others in here, like 1 year, 365 days. Come on, you guys should know that one by now. And then 1 hour has 3,600 seconds. That's something that we'll use on occasion. So you guys will have these. I'll give you a paper with it, or they'll be actually on the guided notes. So keep these, do not lose these, because you'll be using them again. Okay, so when we actually do dimensional analysis, we do something called a picket fence, which I'll show you how to do that in a minute. First things first, it says how many inches in 78 centimeters? Well, we need to make sure that we have our conversion factor. So you got to find a conversion factor that converts inches to centimeters. Now I know there's 2.54 centimeters in 1 inch. So we're going to use that as our conversion factor. So we're going to start out with 78 centimeters. Now notice something. All of our numbers have units attached to them. When you are doing dimensional analysis, you have to make sure you have the units. Now, we're going to put the 2.54 centimeters someplace and 1 inch someplace. How do I figure out which one it is? Well, it needs to cross out. And the only way these cross out in a picket fence is if they are diagonal. So I'm going to put my 2.54 centimeters here and my 1 inch here. That means centimeters are going to cross out. And that's because when you put it on the bottom, you're actually dividing. So this is, to read this, this is actually 78 times 1 inch divided by 2.54. Now, if we had this as centimeters and a centimeter here, our centimeters would cross out. So you're going to multiply everything across the top. And here we get 78, because 78 times 1 is 78. And then multiply everything across the bottom and put it on the bottom. So now we have a division problem. Now notice only the inches carry through. Our centimeters crossed out. So when you do that, 78 divided by 2.54 is 30.7 inches. Okay, so let's do another one. So this one is how many seconds are in 3.25 hours. So this conversion factor we're going to use is 1 hour equals 3,600 seconds. So we're going to start out with 3.25 hours. And we're going to put the 1 hour on bottom because we already have 1 hour on top and we need our hours to cross out. And then we're going to put our 3,600 seconds on top. So now we're going to do 3.25 times 3,600 divided by 1. And we keep our seconds here, but our hours crossed out. So when you do that, you get 11,700 seconds. Pretty easy, right? Well, these are single dimensional analysis, single conversions, okay? The next one we're going to do is a double conversion. Okay, how many hours in 1.75 years? Now, if you happen to know how many hours there are in a year, go ahead and use that. You can do a single conversion. Now, remember on your summative, you're not going to be able to look anything up. So I need to teach you how to do a double conversion on this one. I do know that there are 365 days in 1 year, and I also know there's 24 hours in 1 day. So we're going to do 2 conversions, not just 1, but 2. So we're going to take our years and we're going to convert that to days first, and then convert those days and convert them to hours. So first we're going to start out with 1.75 years is on top. And we're going to put 1 year on bottom and 365 days on top. So I'm going to do 1.75 times 365, and I get 638.75 days. Now you can write on the bottom, you can go ahead and write another picket fence. I just like to carry on the picket fence and do a second one. I don't like to rewrite the days again. You don't have to. You can or you don't have to. Now, this one I know 1 day is 24 hours. So I'm going to put it there because 1 day needs to be at the bottom because I have days on top. So now 638.75 times 24 is 15330 hours. Now, unless I tell you to round somewhere, go ahead and, like with this one, most of the time you're going to be using the whole numbers or rounding to 2 places past the decimal if I tell you. There's no decimal here, so we don't need to round 2 places past the decimal. We just got to write down the number. Now, we can also use dimensional analysis to do metric conversions. We just have to know some common conversion factors. And this is just a few of them. If I need you to know any other ones, I'll give them to you. I'm not going to make you figure them out. But we do know that there's 1,000 milliliters and 1 liter, 1,000 grams and 1 kilogram. There's 100 centimeters in 1 meter, and there are 10 millimeters in 1 centimeter. These are the most common ones I use. There are others, but if there are others, I will give them to you. Okay, so how many milliliters in 12.5 liters? Okay, so the conversion factor that we're going to use is there's 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter. So we're going to do 12.5 liters on top. I'm going to put my 1 liter on bottom, my 1,000 milliliters on top. And then 12.5 times 1,000 is 12,500 milliliters. Now, since we were doing that conversions with moving the decimal, you can use that method to check yourself. The only reason I'm showing you this is because sometimes we do conversions where it's in the middle. So you have to be able to do this particular conversion by using dimensional analysis, not moving the decimal, especially if it's involved in another conversion, like the next problem. Okay, this one is how many milliliters or millimeters are in 15.6 inches. Now, the only conversion factor I've given you is 2.54. Oops, that's not a point. Hang on. Here we go. 2.54 centimeters equals 1 inch. But I didn't tell you how many millimeters, but we do know that there's 10 millimeters for 1 centimeter. So we're going to use this metric conversion as the second conversion. So we're going to take 15.6 inches and we're going to put our 1 inch at the bottom and 2.54 centimeters at the top. And this tells me and I'm going to write down all the numbers. I'm not going to round to the 2 places. You only do that at the very end. So 39.624 centimeters. Now, I know that 1 centimeter has 10 millimeters. So my answer is 396.24 millimeters. That's how many millimeters are in 15.6 inches. Okay, now we're going to do another example. I guess I'll call it example 5. Sometimes we use scientific notation in our dimensional analysis. So I'm going to say how many inches in 1.82 times 10 to the 6th centimeters. So in this case, we're actually going to use what we learned yesterday in scientific notation in with our dimensional analysis. So don't forget, we need to use our EE button. So our conversion factor is 2.54 centimeters equals 1 inch. So this time we're going to start out with 1.82 times 10 to the 6 centimeters. We're going to put our 2.54 centimeters at the bottom, 1 inch at the top. Now when we do the math on this, we're going to use the EE button. We're going to do 1.82 EE 6, and then we're going to divide it by 2.54. When we do that, our answer, now we're going to be putting our answer into, oops, I messed up, into scientific notation since that's what we started with. So we're going to put 7.17 times 10 to the 5 inches. And we will be rounding to 2 places past the decimal. Okay? And that's all there is to it. So I will have your practice problems ready for you tomorrow. See ya. Bye.